Hello. You're listening to WRKE 100.3 LPFM, Salem, streaming live online at WRKE.org and on the TuneIn app. Just search for WRKE. WRKE celebrating 20 years of ad-free music in the Valley. So, kind of today what I wanted to talk about was just I'm sorry, my apologies, it's the Heidrich Motivational Hour, I should mention. But here's one of the importance, I want to discuss the importance on how little worrying does and fear does, the false evidence or expectations appearing real. And I think I found, the right quote just for that. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. There are 2 days in every week about which we should not worry, 2 days that should be kept from fear and apprehension. One of these days is yesterday, with its mistakes and cares, its faults and blunders, its aches and pains. Yesterday has passed forever beyond our control. All the money in the world cannot bring back yesterday. We cannot undo a single act we performed. We cannot erase a single word that we said. Yesterday is gone beyond recall. The other day we should not worry about is tomorrow, with its possible adversities, its burdens, its large promise, and perhaps poor performance. Tomorrow is also beyond our immediate control. Tomorrow's sun will rise either in splendor or behind the mask of clouds, but it will rise. Until it does, we have no stake in tomorrow, for it is yet unborn. That leaves only one day, today. Anyone can fight the battles of just one day. It is only when you and I add the burden of those two awful eternities, yesterday and tomorrow, that we break down. It is not the experience of today that drives us to mad. It is the remorse or bitterness for something that happened yesterday, or the dread of what tomorrow may bring. Let us therefore live but one day at a time. So I kind of like this one. It kind of helps shape my thinking process of why I've worried so much, and why I've learned that it becomes okay to fail, and you shouldn't be ashamed to admit that you failed and did this, because like it's been said before, failure is not a person or a characteristic. It's just an event. It's just a small event in our lives. It's just a stepping stone for what is to come. It is a teacher. It's not a villain. It's there saying, you know what, you've made the average. Everybody who failed made the average. So just know you made the average, and that you can always do better, and you can come back and succeed. And yeah, like I said before, you have to have that attitude where you fail today, come back tomorrow and take the hinges off the door and say that dream's mine and give it up. Sometimes you have to grab life by the throat and say, give it up, it's my dream, let me have it. It's how it is. But what I wanted to do was continue talking about my coping skills as well from my last program. So what I want to do is, where I was at was, I want to say, being alone is better than a bad relationship. Robin Williams probably said it best. He said, I'd rather be alone than be around people who make me feel alone. So if only people who are receiving help are safe for now, that is okay. There's no shame in being alone than if you're going to be stuck in a bad relationship that drains you. We are all going to need a mentor and some coaching in our lives eventually, but in order to get to that point, we have to understand and be able to tell if our relationships are toxic, and if not, we must detoxify our life and get rid of those people. And what you want to do is, next thing is kind of learn to create a new story as a coping skill. Imagine yourself as the hero who overcomes adversity, because one day that it will be. You will become that hero who overcomes adversity. You are the author of your own life. You are the director. You are the screenwriter, producer, and actor of your own story. It's your choice to decide whether it's going to be a box office smash or a box office flop. Ask others. And here you want to ask others if your belief is truly accurate. What you want to do is get alternative opinions. Ask other people. Ask people to rate you on your skills, your abilities, your characteristics, and on your experiences, so that they can tell you whether your fear, your false evidence appearing real, really is valid. Because sometimes fear, it can wake you up. I've mentioned many examples, like the fear of diabetes, from constantly eating sugar and processed and junk food. There's a fear right there, and the fear of if you don't pass, or if you don't pass this next test because you didn't study, then you're going to drop out. Some fears are rational. Sometimes fear can be a good motivator. So, anyways. What you want to do, get organized. You will feel more in control with lists, to-dos, and a clean house. Don't have it be your entire life. You don't revolve your entire life around just plans. Sometimes you need to go with the flow. I always know the saying that if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And also, watch for danger signs. If you notice there's a problem, or if you notice there's an issue that you can suffer, avoid it. Avoid avoidable suffering. When you face a problem before it becomes huge, notice red flags. If you notice the problem, or you notice you're going to have a problem, do something about it. Healing above all. Focus on what's important. I have a professor who always told me you can't focus on your mental health, or you can't focus on your schoolwork, and you can't focus on your life until you have your physical and your mental health under control. It's almost common sense, but it's not common practice. Try something, anything. A good plan today is better than a perfect one tomorrow. Find out whether your assumption's true rather than staying in your head, as I've mentioned before. That's kind of part of discovery. Attend treatment, help yourself, get whatever you need to get, do whatever is necessary. Many people I've come to learn that many people refuse to participate in their own rescue. It's sad, but it's true. So go for anything you can do, and I had to learn that here. Here, if you're a student here, take advantage of the counseling. Get in touch with people in counseling. Take advantage of the writing tutoring and the subject tutoring resources. Get in touch with your professors. Your professors expect you to advocate. Self-advocacy is important. So, like I said, constantly find ways to connect with the resources around you. You are never truly out of options. Do whatever you can to keep you going, to help you realize that your dreams are worth it. It's not worth dying with your dreams unaccomplished. You want to create a buffer. You want to put something between you and that danger, some time, some distance, so you have time to better prepare for it. Reading a motivational book, or reading a self-help book, and reading about coping skills and learning about the worries and fears aren't going to exactly protect you from those worries and fears and those issues and those dangers and those problems and the unavoidable suffering we'll all face. But you will be better prepared once you learn how to better handle it. When you learn how to not let the negative emotions manifest after feeling them for so long, then you'll wind up becoming stronger and more powerful than you can ever begin to imagine. So what you want to do next is say what you really think. You feel closer to others, but just make sure you're saying what you think. Near people you can say anything to. Only say it to save people. Talk to trusted critics. Talk to trusted people who will not always tell you what you want to hear, but tell you what you need to hear so you can grow. It's not always easy being put on the hot seat. Believe me, I couldn't always stand it, but I knew that these people had my best interests at heart. Like, you know, what I'm talking about, like when I'm talking to people like my own mother, for example, and my boss Sheila Scratch Biscuit, who I used to work for. You know, it wasn't always an attaboy, and it wasn't always a congratulations. You know, there had to be some nurturing involved. There always had to be discipline involved, and you just spend your whole life trying to stay motivated. That motivation will burn out. You have to build skills that'll keep you disciplined. And what you want to do next is listen to your needs. You really have to hear what you need. You know, don't abuse yourself. Don't, you know, if you know you need to eat, don't put it off. Eat. If you know you need to sleep, don't try to fight it. Just sleep. Your body is trying to send you signals. You can't just neglect it and expect it to go away. Running your problems will only make them run faster. You'll never truly solve the problems until you face them. What you want to do is, you know, move towards your opposite. And if you're too dependent, try working towards a little bit more independency. You don't want to obviously you don't want to worry about being too independent. But what you want to do is find resources that'll help you become dependent. Help you learn some skills. Like, you know, I go to the Aspire program here at Roanoke College, and we've learned some social skills, and which I'll kind of go into a little bit later, and we kind of discuss self-advocacy and self-care, and, you know, the importance of, like I said, taking care of ourselves and changing up and learning how to read other people's body language, because, you know, sometimes body language says 1,000 words more than what they really are saying. Replay the scene. What you want to do is review that negative event and figure out what you could have done differently next time to avoid it. You're not responsible for what the other person could have said or done. Let them do them. But just know that what you say is your choice too. And so when you see that negative or you see that traumatic event, just, you know, think about what it is you can do to keep yourself off that side of trouble. You know, notice the cost of what you're doing. Think about, you know, what you're allowing to manifest. Think about what your fears you're allowing to imprison you. It's very, very important. You know, and next thing is structure your day. A productive schedule keeps you on track and connected to the world. You know, you just have to. You have to do it, or else it's just going to be chaos. Some people might not prefer it, and that's fine. Not everybody's going to want to structure their day out as such, but some people might find some stability and hope, and will probably feel more in control. Everybody's different, but there are no two exact people in the world with the exact same characteristics, qualities, and etc. Protect yourself. You know, learn how to protect yourself against toxic people, destructive people, bad environments, substances, constant negativity, toxicity, bad relationships, and suffering that you know can be avoided. Learning soothing talk. You know, you learn how to talk to yourself very gently as if to a friend or a child. Or sometimes you might need to talk to yourself a little bit more harshly and tell yourself, hey, you need to get back in the game, or you need to stop, or be like, look, you gotta stop worrying about what all these other people are thinking, or what do you care about their credentials. You know, remind yourself what you have at stake when you're working towards what it is you want. Remind yourself, like, if I don't do this, will I be spending the rest of my life wondering what if? It's just not healthy. There has to be some structure. You know, like I said, you know, opportunity does not knock at every door, as Les Brown said. It stands by silently, waiting for you to answer. You know, telling your story to everybody is not always the best thing you can do. You know, you should tell your story to certain people. You should be able to talk to your family comfortably Make sure your family's someone you can talk to when those hard times come, and they're going to come. When the rejections and disappointments come, and those rejections and disappointments will come by the truckload, believe me. So, tell your story to people you can, to a close family that you can trust, maybe a close friend too. Maybe your therapist or your counselor or your psychiatrist. But don't go around telling everybody. Don't go around at the bus stop and telling anybody who will listen, even after the problem is over with and solved, or what happened and happened. Because 80% don't care and 20% are glad it's you. You talk about your own problems, and then you hear someone else's problems, and you think their problems are real bad, and it kind of makes you feel good. So, like I said, talk to certain people like your family or friends, but don't let your negativity manifest. Don't let it become a part of your conscious. Don't let it become second nature to you. You are in charge. Things may happen to you and outside of you, but what matters is what happens inside of you. It's that growth that takes place inside of you, that feeling you get after you do something good that doesn't require recognition, or you don't ask for recognition. You get that good feeling when you hold the door for somebody. You get that feeling inside of you. Those are the things that happen, that matter within you. It's the small things. People spend their whole lives trying to chase the big things in life, and really, it's the small things. We sweat the small things too much, or we sweat the big things too much, but later when we grow up, we realize all those big things were really just the small things. It's all that matters, like tucking your son into bed, or spending time with your family, or even something as small as holding the door for a stranger, or talking to a mentor. Those are the growth that takes place inside of you, that character development that you start to get, and that makes you feel good. And that's what happens, and that's what is important. So, like I said, things may happen to you and outside of you, but what matters is what happens inside of you. But you don't get in life what you want; you get in life what you are. So, if you're a jerk, you're going to wind up getting surrounded by jerks. If you're respectful, chances are you'll get respect. Obviously, you'll always face adversity and disappointment and rejections and no's everywhere you go, no matter what you do, but you will also get what you give. So, help somebody and help yourself, because what you give is what you get. Sometimes, if there's something you want, the dream can be simple. Sometimes it can be something simple as wanting to buy groceries for your family, or simply having plenty of food. As long as it builds you and others and propels your character development or sense of self, then the dream is valid. The dream is important. As long as it is building to change our world for the better, make a call and rebel against adversity, and you're stretching and going and doing what you have to do. You're the hero that moves the story forward. As long as your dream builds you and others and propels you and your sense of self, and again propels others, then the dream doesn't matter how small or big it is. And even when the dream, and especially when the dream is big enough, the odds don't matter. Those false expectations appearing real won't matter when the dream is big enough, when you know what you have at stake is too big. So, just take it for what it is. Just understand, nobody cares as much about your dream as much as you do. The most reliable hand you can rely on is the one on your wrist. Try and be independent and more independent. Everyone is, but don't try to be entirely independent, though. Nobody ever achieves anything entirely alone. Everybody is like the student waiting for the master to arrive. When the student is ready, the teacher will arrive. I don't believe we pick our mentors and our teachers. I believe they pick us because they see something with us. They see us as very capable. They see us as having something special. It's just like I've learned from Les when he heard the great motivational speaker, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. He said, you have something special. You have greatness within you. You have the power to do more than you can ever begin to imagine. Your gifts will take you places that will literally amaze you. And I guess, like I said, it just all goes to show. Just, like I said, everybody's like the blind man waiting to be walked across the streets. It's true. We never achieve anything alone in this world. We may be brought into the world, but who we become is our choice. And how do we try to thrive in a world where there's just constant accelerated change and overwhelming complexity and tremendous competition? Well, we can never truly know everything there is to know about the world. One thing I've learned in economics is to understand the inner workings of just one device or one mechanism or one product can be a full-time job. But that doesn't mean you should never always learn more. There should be a silver lining to this. Just because you don't know everything doesn't mean there isn't always something new to learn and something new to grow in. So you must be willing to do the things today others won't do in order to have the things tomorrow that others won't have. If you rush the process, it's hard to trust it and expect it to work out. And as Les Brown's drama teacher, like his little mentor, said, anything worth doing is worth doing badly until you get it right. You have to learn to seek opportunity and not always stick with security and stick with the status quo. You have to be willing to kind of go against the grain or against the wind, as Bob Seger put it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But what if we change our mindset to, if it's not perfect, keep working on it. Don't stop until it's satisfactory. Don't settle for mediocrity. Don't settle for less than amazing or extraordinary. Nobody believes in you. You've lost again and again and again, but you're still looking at your dream, reviewing it every day and saying to yourself, it's not over until you win. These are the type of attitudes and ideas you have to keep in mind. Don't rush the process. Understand that you don't have to be great in order to start, but you have to start if you want to be great. You have to be willing to do those things today that others won't do, to have things tomorrow others won't have. If something you're doing is not perfect, keep working on it. You can always better your best. And understand that if you are not the same person, or if you're still the same person you were for a year ago, a month ago, or even as much as yesterday, you are not growing. You have to understand that not everyone's going to believe in you. Choosing to be an uncommon person is going to attract criticism. It's just something you have to learn to face. You have to have that relentless, massive scale to operate on your dreams. You don't want to let your emotions manifest too much, or your negative emotions manifest. You want to learn to move from the pity party attitude and start learning, and start preparing yourself for the victory party once you get that feeling of success and once you get the feeling of achieving your dreams. And know that when you succeed, it is not necessarily over. You don't want to making too much of your success can be just as detrimental to your well-being as making too much of your failures. I've seen it too much. You become egotistical about your success if you let it manifest too much, and you see nothing new to aspire for. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, or how far you've come. You can always go further. You can always better your best and move past what it is you have done. You can always contribute more than you've contributed now. You can always provide better service than you've provided before. You can always improve the quality. Just like I've said before, if it's not perfect, keep working for it. It's not if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's if it's not perfect, keep working on it. Don't stop. Don't give up if people tell you no, if people tell you this and that, and tell you it's not going to happen, and the cliche, you're never going to make it, saying, you don't let it stop you. Don't let it, it's just an event. It's not supposed to define you. Don't let it deplete your energy. You have to learn how to move forward, a sight from failure to failure. Winston Churchill said it best when he said, enthusiasm is the courage to move from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. Courage is the ability to move from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. And what I want to do is kind of read one of my chapters from the book that I like, that I told you about, that I've read 4 times over. It's Les Brown's debut book called Live Your Dreams. And that's kind of part of why I wanted to start the show, was to start reading this book to a wider audience. I wanted to spread the word and give him a legacy that everybody will remember. Give people, words and thoughts that'll make them think differently the next time they face some suffering and they face some rejections and setbacks in their life. So I'm gonna go ahead and do just that. I'm just gonna read the first chapter. Here's chapter 1, Miss Mamie Brown's Baby Boy. We called the few blocks that were my territory as a boy the alley, and they had an alley's nature. It could get tough, so we had to be tough. My adoptive mother, Miss Mamie Brown, tells the story about the time I was coming home from the grocery store with a bag of rice and a can of kerosene, and she heard the new neighbor yell to 2 of his own sons, "Jump on that boy and beat him up." I think the neighbor had grown tired of watching his boys wrestle, so they decided they'd do better to tussle with me. When Mama heard the neighbor sick his boys on me, she rushed to the door. She saw that they were all over me and that I was not fighting back. You see, my mother had done a very thorough job of instilling in me the very importance of preserving groceries at all costs when I went to the store for her. My husband had no husband and very little money. She had adopted my twin brother and me as infants. She worked hard as a cafeteria cook, maid, and fruit picker to keep us in groceries. She could not and did not tolerate wastefulness. I was not always the obedient son, but through the effective use of the tree switch, Mama had taught me this particular lesson very well. And so, even though I was taking an awful whooping from those 2 boys, I held on to my Mama's groceries and tried to get a kick in now and then. But when my Mama came out and saw those boys all over me, she suspended the grocery preservation row. "Throw them groceries down and get those boys," she yelled. And I did. They stuck to wrestling with each other after that. They learned their lesson, a lesson that day that, too, I hope to impart to you in this book. There comes a time when you have to drop your burdens in order to fight for your dreams. Many of us carry baggage from the past that hinders our ability to fight for the things we want in life. Our goals, our dreams. If you learn in this book to let go of those burdensome emotions and memories, then one of my chief objectives will be realized. You will be able to pursue and live your dreams. So let me tell you about my life and some of those burdens that I had to learn to drop in order to go after my own goals and dreams. I never knew my natural parents. In fact, I still don't know their names or where they live, but not long ago, I learned just a few pieces of information about them. It was not much, but it was enough. It is still more than I had ever really desired to hear. Miss Mamie Brown, the only parent I have ever known, is all the parent I will need. She adopted me and my fraternal twin brother, Wesley, when we were only a few weeks old, and on her own she raised us and a sister, Margaret, whom she adopted 5 years later. The facts that I recently discovered concerning my natural parents are these. My birth mother came from Miami from somewhere else to give birth to my brother and me on the floor of an abandoned building and then give us away 3 weeks later. The woman was married to a soldier stationed overseas but had become pregnant by another man. She wanted us to give us away before her husband found out about us. Those are the facts related to me by a friend of my adopted mother. I have never discussed the matter with Mama. For a long time, I hated my natural parents. Even though I had no idea who they are, it was a lot of work holding that grudge. I didn't even have a picture to glare at. Finally, I dropped the baggage, though, after contemplating a quote from philosopher Kahlil Gibran, who said that our parents bring us into the world, but in the end we are responsible for what we become. Parents, like he said, are like the archer's bow, and children are the arrows. Our children come through us, but not from us, Gibran said. My anger was eased, too, by a friend's reminder that, as an adoptive child, I was chosen by love rather than being delivered by fate to my mama, Miss Mamie Brown. As a child and into adulthood, I had occasionally gone through some inner questions that come to most who are adopted. I wonder what my father and mother looked like, what kind of people they were if they thought about me. I never attempted to identify or locate my natural parents, but one time a friend of mine who was adopted did, and he took me alone for the support. I watched from the curb when his father opened the door. Immediately I saw the likeliness was stunning. This was obviously his true father. My friend said, "Hi, I'm your son." And his father said, "I don't have a son," and slammed the door in his face. My friend walked away shattered. "I wish I had never found him," he said. "At least I would not have to live with the rejection that even now he doesn't want me." Not all sort of searches for birth parents in that way, of course, but I've come to feel that whomever my parents are, I forgive them. I have to play with the hand dealt to me, and I cannot be effective in my life if I allow myself to be burdened with anger, resentment, and guilt. The past is past. You can make decisions about your life. If you're carrying strong feelings about something that happened in your past, they may have hindered your ability to live in the present. You have to get rid of them. They have no real value in themselves, other than the value that you give them. My goal in this book is to help you make this a great life, to help you expand your consciousness, the focused force of your will, so that you may grow and flourish in pursuit of the dreams as I have. A focused consciousness will enable you to drop the burdens that you have carried and to overcome life's inevitable blows. If it can put you in control of your own life, it can also help you contribute the lives to those you encounter in the world we all inhabit. And maybe even the worlds we may inhabit in the future, if we even get there. You may not accomplish every goal that you set. No one does, but what really matters is having goals and going after them wholeheartedly. In the end, it is the person you become, not the things that you achieve, that is the most important. I learned from my mother that there is greatness in all of us, and that all of us are delivering in this world with a mission. I believe that life is a journey, often difficult and sometimes incredibly cruel, but we are well equipped for it if only we tap into our talents and gifts and allow them to blossom. I feel blessed to have been the son of Miss Mimi Brown, my role model in life. My mama is a woman of tremendous determination and courage. Now in her 80s, she is much as a force to ever be reckoned with. Truly, she is the mistress of her own destiny, a woman who lives her dreams through sheer force of will. I will refer to her frequently in the book because I am very much my mother's son. The source of my own determination is her great strength. I have learned from my mother, and my goal is to impart some of her strength and wisdom to you, along with some methods of endurance and perseverance that I have acquired through my own experience. Now, what I want to do is stop this reading briefly, to kind of make some other points that I had promised to bring up. And what I wanted to bring up was that, what do you want to put it? I guess, my apologies, I'm struggling to find the right words. The understanding the social skills and the social cues that I think will be necessary. There's something I learned from the early 20th century and 19th century. It's like, do the best you can and can the rest. So do the best of what you can and let the best play out. You can't spend. Ugh. I'm so sorry about that. I guess I'm so sleepy. But like I said, do the best you can, but don't spend the whole day wondering the rest will play out. Sometimes the rest will play out. It's none of your business. What everyone else thinks of you isn't always your business. If someone gives you a compliment, say thank you and comment back. Don't spend your whole life biting your bottom lip. It tells people who you are. It shows it paints you as this person who's always nervous and anxious and sad and worried. Sometimes you will have to bite your bottom lip, but you don't want that to become your personality. You don't want people to think of you as, oh, that's that kid who always is in a rut and is always in a slump and can never seem to focus on it. You want to, you gotta understand. It's like with depression, that negative thinking, those negative emotions. It's a defining feature. We minimize our positive experiences, but we magnify our negative experiences. It's like, why do we do this? Why do we do that? And so learning to have some gratitude towards others and towards ourselves can combat this tendency by shifting towards those positive experiences rather than the negative ones. Anyways, like I said, you always want to try to pick some positive experiences and pick positive reasons as to why that dream is important for you. It doesn't have to be something big. It can just be something like, I was able to sleep in, or I watched a funny movie today, or it can be anything small, or it can be anything big, like my dreams came true, or I passed this exam, or I've graduated. And you understand, when you understand why it happened, why it was meaningful, and how you can experience more of it, you'll be able to experience more of it. When you understand why something happened and your actions that led to it, you understand that your actions are, when you realize that your choices are the very determinants of your outcomes. Nothing ever happens by luck. It is all by choice. That's just the way of the world. That's just the law of the world. And so when you start thinking, why did this happen? And you realize what the person you had become, you'll understand the growth that it takes to work towards your goals and your accomplishments, and like the discipline it requires. But when you get that feeling of proudness and feeling like sensational and grateful, then you'll realize all the discipline and hard work will be even worth it. That much more later on. You'll realize the next time you're working towards another goal, because you can always better your best, you'll realize when you are working on that goal that that all the time you put into it and the energy you put into it is worth it, no matter how long it takes. So what I want to do is kind of get back to what I was reading, but I wanted to make some points and before I had forgotten and I had lost track. So, Mama often told me stories from her own life. She spent her own childhood without the benefit of a mother. It is believed that her mother was poisoned by a woman who wanted Mama's father for herself. My mama died and left me a crawling baby, she said. The family's legend is responsible for one of my mother's lifelong quirks, which she passed on to me through relentless repetition. Never put down a drinking glass, leave it, and then return to drink from it. She believes that was how her mother was killed. That poison was poured into her drinking glass left on the table. Her father was a farm worker who followed the fruit crops as they ripened in the southern states. Mama accompanied in its migrations and has had a succession of babysitters and some kinfolk, some not. Though she yearned for her mother's loving and nurturing warmth of a family, Mama's life was not without love or joy. People love me, she tells me. When I was young, I danced up this world. I've spent many hours in the thrall of stories from my mother's girlhood in rural Florida. Tales of her pony rescuing Mama by finding her father and bringing him to her when she was stuck to a tree. And tales of the crocodile that she fed chickens to until it grew into the monster that answered her when she called it. I still get chills. My mother tells the story of the worst beating she ever received and how the spirit of her mother came to her aid afterward. My father told me never to go swimming in the pond where the crocodile lived, but I went anyways. I was 10 years old and just like my boy Leslie, hard-headed. I rode my pony down there and took my clothes off and went swimming, and when I got out, I looked up and saw my papa coming. I went to run him, but my papa followed me into the house and beat me so bad with a buggy whip. Everywhere Sorry about that. I guess I need more sleep. Anyways, everywhere you could see on my body there was a lick. He beat me so badly that they had to grease my body afterwards with hog lard because we didn't have enough Vaseline to cover all the welts. I was so sore and crying when I went to bed. He begged me not to cry like that. He was still crying there when it seemed that the door opened a bit, but when I opened again, I saw it hadn't. There was a bar on it, so I couldn't. Then all of a sudden there was a tall woman, standing looking at me beside my bed. She had a basket of fruit, bananas and such, and she had a great big dog with her. She looked at me up and down and shook her head kind of sad. The dog stood at the edge of the bed and stared into my eyes. Ooh, he was. Ooh. His eyes were like lights and kind of paralyzed me. I felt I couldn't move as long as the dog stared at me. The woman left my room and went into my father's bedroom, and I heard him making strange grunty noises like something was bothering him. I wondered what was happening. After a while, the woman came back into my room and looked at me. She looked at me again, shook her head, and the dog left me. I heard the door shut. When the dog took his eyes off me, I jumped up, and then Papa was in my room. "Did you see that?" he asked. I said yes. It was a tall woman with a basket of bananas and a dog. "That was your mama." He cried and said he would never hit me again. I cried too. He said, "Don't cry if you'll just eat." I hadn't eaten, I hurt so. I looked like a snake wriggling in that bed, and get better, I'll never do that again. He said, "Your mama told me if I would beat you like that again, then she'll come back to her little girl and take her away." I said, "You told me mama was dead." My papa said, "Yes, but the spirit lives, and in a spirit wants her children. She will come for him." My mother believes that her own mother did not appear that day, or did appear that day. She carries many such beliefs, a lot of old-time beliefs, such as the one about no cussing or talking when it thunders. God is angry, and she says, and you don't want to risk angering him further. You hear God talking, you fool, she'll say, "You better shut up now." My mama also swears to this day she once saw a live mermaid, actually a merman. She saw about 11 years ago when she had gone to get some mullet at the Lighthouse Fish Market. Two men were arguing outside the fish market. One blamed the other for the hard rain that had soaked the ground for 2 days. He said nature was punishing him for capturing the merman. Mama watched as the other pulled the merman from a barrel of water. It was nearly as big as Mama, with short, muscular human arms, a powerful chest, and a split tail covered with scales. He had moss-like hair, fish eyes, and small fish teeth that grinned at her. He was very ugly, according to Mama's recollection. Her vivid description never varies to her conviction of its authenticity, and it never wavers even today. I begged that story of her hundreds of times as a child, and my children and my grandchildren have done the same. Mama enjoyed a life rich in most ways. It was impoverished only in the monetary sense. She knew that she was greatly loved by her father, and she had a full understanding of how hard he had labored to support her. She married at 15, but left the man after a few months, and she learned that contrary to his promises, he had no intention of allowing her ailing father to come live with him. He told me a big lie, and after that I could not stand him anymore, she says. Though she was soured on men in general and marriage in particular, Mama still wanted a family. Her desire was as powerful as her will. Always, Mama yearned for the closeness of a family. As a teenager, she was greatly hurt when a friend chastised her for calling her friend's mother Mama. In adulthood, Mama often told stories that she yearned for the children in her own house, she said, "because I want somebody with me in the world besides myself." I was one of those friends who told Mama about a woman who came to Miami to find someone to adopt her unborn twins. Mama volunteered immediately. There was another woman in the running, but she wanted only one of the twins. Mama did not believe in splitting up families. She said she would take us both, and the adoption was arranged. The natural mother made Mama swear never to reveal her identity or her whereabouts to my brother and me. Mama had honored her vow, though I am quite certain there were occasions where she was tempted to send us back, particularly me. I was the burden that Mama bore for many years. Wesley was always a good boy. You were hard-headed, she says. She never lets me forget that. We grew up in Overtown and Liberty City, the poorest neighborhoods in Miami. They were not slums or ghettos then, but they are often called that today. Few bothered to grasp the social and political forces that trained them the vitality they had when I was a boy. Both neighborhoods were vibrant, with theaters and dance halls and churches, and all of which rocked with equal abandon at their designated hours. Our mother supported us at the M&M cafeteria, and later as a nursing home cook, maid, and housekeeper. She enlisted friends with her own small children to mind us while she worked for wages. When Mama took us in, Mama had absolutely no idea how she was going to support us. She knew she wanted a family, so she made us that, and then proceeded to do whatever it took to keep us in shirts and dungarees and food. Many times people back away from things they want to do, from the dreams they nurtured, because they cannot envision a clear way to bring those goals to reality. Mama lived by the saying, you must by faith and not by sight. She believed that if you summon the courage to go after your dreams, life will provide the answers. And that is kind of where I wanted to end there for that. And what I wanted to do was, if you want to catch more of the show and you want to help spread the word about this show, about the Heidrich Motivational Hour, visit. I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, and on Instagram. Under Facebook, I go by my name, Anakin Heidrich. That's ANAKYNHEIDRICH. Again, that's ANAKYNHEIDRICH. God bless. Anyways, and under Facebook, under the same. Or not under Facebook, under Instagram, I also go under the same. First name and last name, Anakin Heidrich. And on my YouTube, I go by The Coolest Pet in Town, a YouTube channel I've had since 2018. And The Coolest Pet in Town is also my other Instagram page. I recommend following all of them if possible, then to help spread the word, help share the news, and share the advertisement, and share share this show, let other people know of this light, let people know that there is positivity, that there is hope. It's just, I created this show, or I created this, and I wanted this to reach an audience, and I want this to, help people find a sense of meaning in their lives, and not always spend their lives in pity and sorrow, but learn how to flourish and realize that they are worth it and that their gifts are worth it. So, that kind of brings me to another point. I remember Les Brown talking about some exercises he had in this program he ran with teenagers, and they had like a simulation process where they would do collectively and individually, So, what he found out was many of the teenagers, when faced with this situation, they said in order to survive, they would commit suicide. And it made no sense, because it's, it's ironic. It's a self-contradictory statement. And he said, why would someone want to do with that? And he's like, why? And the teachers, or the students said, at least that means we wouldn't have to suffer. But then they had the nerve to write down all the things they were going to do after they committed suicide. And so he said, listen, Condumbo, when you find a permanent solution to a temporary problem, that's it. Game's over. Anyone who wrote suicide at the top, you can put your pencils down. The story makes me chuckle a little bit, but there's a lot of meaning to it. Too often we throw our lives away because of our circumstances and our events. Our circumstances and events and failures are not people, they are just events in our lives, and when you get through it and you understand why you face that event and understand, I know why I need that lesson, you realize that's the small stuff, and you realize, don't sweat the big things, because all the big things are just small things at the end of the day, and beyond our lives, and they're all small things, regardless of how much contribution they contribute. We realize how small we really are in this galaxy, in this big galaxy, in our solar system, like one of these many 8 planets, and we just sit there and we argue over the frivolous stuff, and we need to learn how to cope with each other, because if we don't, we'll tear each other down to the pulp. We need to worry about building each other up and learn how to make everybody better and not bitter, as he had put it. It's something you have to, when you think about how small we are, and you realize that there are bigger problems to worry about and have some rational fear over. We learn to really respect each other and respect ourselves more. Like Les Brown said, the richest place in the world isn't the gold mines or the palaces or the White House. It's the graves, because that is where those who didn't act on their potential and dreams take all their potential and dreams to the graves with them. Like I said, imagine how much further we'd be along if everyone acted on their ideas, everyone listened and cared about one another and put away their differences. Everyone didn't always act with their intentions in mind, or only with recognition in mind. We would all be so much further ahead. Like, if we didn't spend our time fighting about politics and decay and all these issues we're facing now, but we would realize just how capable we are of solving these problems instead of worrying about it. We spend our time talking about these problems, we're never going to solve them. Our actions speak more than 1,000 debates ever could. That's why I kind of had a growing fondness to my mom's love of Star Trek. Like, I used to think it was all stupid, but when I find out, it kind of tells that story of humanity, of people who, fight over the frivolous stuff, and it's like we're all mouse fighting over a piece of cheese. It's like I sometimes I believe the aliens saw us and saw, no, we out of here, we're gonna lose our minds up in here. You know what I mean? So, we have to set the example that we want. We have to set an example for ourselves that we want others to become. If we're ever gonna strive past and really solve these problems, I really do believe every problem is solvable. How can it be if it wasn't solvable, then how could it be a problem, or how can it be a mystery? If it wasn't solvable, then it would just be here to stay. If our problems and our tough times we weren't able to solve and push through, they wouldn't be tough times. They would just be our whole life. Tough times aren't here to stay. Tough times are here to pass. You have to learn how to find faith, find the answers in the heart, and get rid of ego, edging God out, and getting rid of pride. Pride cometh before the fall. We have to learn how to lift each other up when we realize we are all a part of this big happy family, that every single one of us is related somehow, and that we are all more than the worst thing that we've ever done, as Brian Stevenson put it. Then we will be able to make so many people proud. We will be able to touch so many lives, and the world will never be the same again because we came this way. When we have our bad days, we don't say we're having bad days. We're having character building days. When we say we're having bad days, we don't let people put us down. When we're facing tough times, we will surround ourselves with those who don't toxify our lives, those who tell us what we need to hear, not always what we want to hear, those who soothe us and remind us of that inner child inside of us. I've had to learn, find that inner child inside of me when working on my dreams. I've been working on a pitch for one of my classes, The Business of Showbiz, and what my pitch was the movie studio that I've been wanting to create, and I had been coming up with some logo ideas. I wish I could show it, but this is radio, so I can't really do that. But yeah, watching how I was able to come up with this logo design of my own that represented everything I loved in my childhood and still now, cats, cactus, in films, and the stage, and all incorporated in my own logo, and my love for camera work and everything. It reminded me of why I work towards my dream, and so sometimes it's just like I said, we have to learn how to find our child at heart, and because if we don't, life will beat us until we surrender, and life will life will whoop us until until we are so miserable that we have to act on our dreams and we have to act on our choices. And also, if we want to detoxify our lives, we have to get away from the mindless scrolling on social media and, wasting our lives in front of the TV every day and like I said before, are you watching other people live their lives, or are you going out there and trying to live yours? It's just, it all goes without saying. But the social media, it's all, it's good every now and then. It's good when you want to get your message out. It's good. There are moments of positivity, but I feel like we too often make social media too much of a venting spot, and it's unhealthy. And I feel like it's all meant to, social media has been, I've noticed it everywhere, in every post I read and everything I see, it's just division and fighting and bickering and constant negativity, and it can get quite depressing. It's not meant to divide us, it's meant to unite us. If we learn to step away from that, learn to step away from the scrolling that's rewired to keep us anxious, we will finally be able to focus on what it is that we want to do with our lives. We can't spend our lives with these bad habits. It's the doom scrolling, the constantly reading negative comments and reading negative stories and listening to negativity all around. It's just not a way to live our lives. We have to accomplish. We have something we were put on this planet to do, and we did not get chosen out of 40 million or billion sperms or whatever it was just to end up in jail or prison, or end up doom scrolling, or end up overweight because we couldn't get ourselves under control, or we didn't come all this way to end up to die sad and alone. I watched a movie just a couple of days ago. One of the first movies that made me emotional in one of my film classes. It's considered one of the greatest movies ever made, if not the greatest, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the layers and the emotional complexity. It was the movie Citizen Kane from Orson Welles. Hands down fantastic. He tried to buy everything he could. He tried to buy all these riches and all these valuables that meant nothing to him, then building a life with people, and he winds up dying alone with all this, all this nonsense and all this material and stuff that in the end meant nothing. His own castle was decaying, his own life was decaying, and he wound up dying a sad and lonely man. It's almost a reckoning of, it's almost like teaches you the lesson of why you can't live your life through material and your life through just stuff and making your stuff a part of your personality. Because if you do, and you don't really listen to what people really want, and you make it your life all about your items and your stuff, then people are eventually going to wind up leaving. It's sad, but it's true. I believe that, a lot of movies have taught me some powerful lessons over the years. Some of it could be a good education too, if you watch the right ones and you learn the right lessons and you're able to see the messages they're trying to convey. But this one in particular, it makes you realize, in the end, none of this stuff matters. The stuff that you leave to your children, the money that you leave to your children, the stuff that you leave to your children is not as important as the lessons and the stories and the life that you imparted and gave to them. It's just, you have to find something beyond material and material life and social media and this constant, wasting your life on bad habits, getting rid of bad habits. Peer pressure doesn't happen overnight, but so does reversing it. Reversing it doesn't happen overnight either, but it's all possible. I believe everybody has the ability to strive from adversity and become more than they were, no matter how dire their circumstances are. But anyways, this is about to wrap up this second program, Heidrich Motivational Hour, and I wanted to thank you all for listening and tuning in. I wanted to thank, my mama and my father, Jay, and my brothers, Skylar, Jordan, Riker, my sisters, Talua, and Bri, and, the rest of my family, and I think, Cody and Emily. I thank everybody for, given me something to contribute to this show. And, everything I am and ever will be, I owe to my mother. So, Mama, if you're listening to this, I just want you to know I love you very much. Anyways, you're listening to WRKE 100.3 LP FM. Salem, streaming live online at WRKE.org. And on the TuneIn app, just search for WRKE. Thank you very much and goodbye.